I would like to be a partner in education with you. I have been that for a number of years, and I would ask that we could work together in the next few months to ensure the best for all students, and to wait a little bit further for virus outcomes to make a final decision on the admittance of foreign exchange students to your high schools next year. Due to the pandemic, many of our students who planned to come were not able to come, and they were deferred. Some that were planning on being here have actually been deferred to next year that were signed off in your district last year. For many of them, it will be their only opportunity to come because they will age out. For our scholarship students that spend over a year to compete for that scholarship in their country, sometimes competing against thousands of students, their opportunity to come here is only through that scholarship program. The deferred students from last, really?
Yep.
No. Oh.
Goes by fast.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. She can hand that out to the board.
Okay. In conclusion, please consider postponing the date.
Thank you.
Laura. Next up, Sheena Coolman.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. Have you ever cried placing your child on the bus? I don't mean the happy tears your child is growing up, but I mean the ugly tears, the tears that come from when you're afraid for your child's safety. I do. I stood in front of the board in October of 2017 because I was afraid for my child's safety and afraid for her education. I'm here again in the same situation, wondering every morning if I'm making the right decision by sending my child to school. I'm not wondering these things because of the pandemic or COVID-19. I'm wondering these things because I know that there are not enough staff to run the special education classroom my daughter is in. I'm wondering these things because I know that my daughter is not excited to go to school anymore, and it is a fight, and the look that she gives me as the bus pulls away. I'm wondering these things because of the communication log that is sent home with my child each day, and some days says, "Today was chaotic." I'm wondering these things because of the conversations I've had with her teacher about how she is trying to be in 2 different classrooms at the same time due to the current restrictions. I'm wondering these things because of emails that I have from my child's teacher stating she does not have enough staff in her classroom. How would you feel if you left your child that way each day? The difference between when I stood up here before and standing up here now is I know what my child is entitled to and what she should be receiving. I know that I have other parents standing up here with me and a legal advocate working hard with me to fight for what my daughter and other special ed students are legally mandated to receive. I stand up here now to tell you, the school board, and all the parents here where the district's money is going, and to ask you to look at what's going on. As myself and 3 other parents have filed due process with the district, and with all of us, the executive director of student services refused to sit down for a resolution meeting, and now has forced the district to get an attorney and spend thousands of dollars on each due process. Thousands of dollars that could be spent helping our children or getting new computers or other things they need. As we drive around, we see beautiful new elementary schools being built, but at some point in the not so distant future, we will need new middle schools and high schools. Yet, we will not be able to afford them because the district will have spent their money on attorney's fees, fighting parents who are only asking for what their child deserves. I want the district and the board members to know that I will continue to fight for my child, and I will not stop until my child gets what she is legally mandated to. So I urge you to look at what myself and the other parents are asking for now, because it is not much compared to the amount of money the district is spending on attorney fees. Thank you.
Thank you. I was told that we had one more person in the audience that did not get to sign up in advance. Who would that be? Oh, go ahead. What is your name?
Katie Wright.
Katie?
Katie Wright.
Okay. 1 second, Katie, let her get
Absolutely.
ready. You ready? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you for this opportunity. We, as a family, have been involved with the Peninsula School District for over 10 years. Up until the last few years, we've had a very positive experience, but unfortunately, these last 3 years have been a constant battle, and I wanted to bring your attention to what's happening with special education in the Peninsula School District. I don't know the extent of falsehoods that the members sitting here are being told of a picturesque special education program, but as a parent going through this with a child who has special needs, it's terrible. The week of February 8th, as parents and students were preparing special Valentine's cards for friends, the Peninsula School District paid out tens of thousands of dollars to fight myself, a mother of a medically fragile child, in a due process hearing. The district had multiple attempts to sit down with me and have a conversation on how we can work together, and each time in the emails they responded with, quote, "The district does not see any potential resolution and waives the resolution meeting." End quote. It would have cost nothing additional to sit down and attempt a conversation on how we can work together. 2 other families have also filed due process and received the same exact email. Is this the culture of the district in response to working with families of students with special needs? They want to spend money, taxpayer dollars, on lawyers and administrative hearings rather than spending that money on students. 3 parents, including myself, have filed due process, and 3 more are preparing documents to do the same. What are parents to do? I had reached out to the board asking for help about one of my many concerns about my 9-year-old daughter able to leave the classroom in her wheelchair unnoticed and without adult supervision for an undisclosed amount of time. According to her IP, she's required to have an adult with her every minute of the school day. The board responded that my daughter didn't report being injured and didn't report a problem. My daughter is nonverbal. To the board, I implore you to appropriately look into the severe inadequacies and procedural violations that are being allowed to happen without oversight. Parents aren't being heard, our concerns are being pushed aside, and most importantly, the needs of the students are not being met. I know we can do better. Thank you so much for your time.
David, is it possible to try Anna Beam again?
Try one more time.
Good evening, this is Anna.
Good evening, Anna. 3rd time's a charm, I guess. So, it's David Olson, Peninsula School Board President. Thanks for joining us. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board, and we will have a timer. And at the end of your 3 minutes, you'll hear a beep, and you'll know your 3 minutes are up. So we will start the timer when you begin your comments.
Is it starting now?
Not yet, not till you start talking.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Hakwahel Osea Biciaya Yatchala Tudi Sita Anna Bean Sita Boyal Pachtad. Good day, my honorable friends and relatives. My name is Anna Bean. My native name is way over there, and I'm a Puyallup tribal member. I'm currently serving at the end of my 1st term as a Puyallup tribal council member, and I'm honored to be in your presence this evening. Tonight we are talking about the renaming or denaming of a new school in the Gig Harbor or Peninsula School District, and the name is Squabach. And I'm not sure, I heard that it was a possibility that you were considering the English name instead of the Washusi name. Either way, we would be greatly honored. By bringing this name into an educational system means that you are honoring the true history of the Puyallup people. When you do that, you are honoring not only our ancestors, but our people of today and our future generations. Our people have faced termination. We were subjected to assimilation, and our existence was nearly wiped out. When you display accurate history in a school district, it is the most high honor. That means that you validate the importance of factual history. We are a people right now that are revitalizing our culture, our language, our way of life, and also our freedom of prayer. And when you have taken the opportunity to even put the Square name into consideration, you honor a membership of nearly 6,000 people. I thank you for your time on the floor this evening, and I look forward to hearing how your vote is decided on Hoya's Shed. I am finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes comments from the community, unless there's anyone here still wanting to speak. Okay, so we now move on to district reports. First up, we have a report from Assistant Superintendent John Helwich, then followed by Dan Gregory.
Thank you. I'm going to start with an elementary report and get us kicked off with elementary. And this is a fun report because it's no longer a reopening report. It's a report on how it's been going with our reopening. Just to kind of review, we're in 3 platforms in elementary, and that started 5 months ago when we started our kindergarten and first graders in 4-day-a-week, full-day school, in-person school for those that chose it, along with the remote option as well. Then 5 weeks ago, we added 2nd grade, and then about 3 weeks ago, we added a second platform, 3rd grade through 5th grade, in a half-day model, 4 days a week, in the either AM or the PM. Again, all of those models, no matter where you are in K through 5, there's also a remote option for students. And I can report that, while we still have bugs that are being worked out, in general, school is going smoothly. Students who are choosing in person have kind of adapted to the protocols and the procedures of the school. Things are operating safely, and the students that are there are enjoying the experience and doing great and learning. And it's great to be able to focus on that after all of the work to get the students in. And I just want to give a shout out to all the staff that did all of the hard work to get that all of those students into the right learning environment that works for them and their family. We haven't been able to focus and report to you much about really much on the learning side and professional development, because it's all about getting kids in school. So I do want to talk about that a little bit because I think that's important and exciting. We reported to you last year about a multi-year, multi-tiered systems of support initiative that the district is embarking in, the committees that have been working on that, and the focus areas. Last year, our focus area was on social emotional learning, or SEL. That's still our focus this year, and it's going to be even more so our focus as we begin bringing more students back on campus. But the next area to focus on was more of the academic MTSS. And an area that we're focusing on that is on early literacy. So we started this week with some training with all of our kindergarten, first grade, and 2nd grade teachers starting looking at early literacy and especially a little focus on dyslexia. Washington passed a law in 2018 that required schools to screen children from K through 2 for signs of dyslexia and to provide reading support for those that needed it. That law takes in effect next year, 21-22. So with this training on Wednesday, the teachers got to understand a little bit more about that law and start to look at some of the research around dyslexia and ways that they can provide the support students need, and that'll be ongoing. And not just on dyslexia, but other early literacy training will be ongoing as well. So it's good to be able to focus on that, to remember that we're here to learn and not just to stay distanced and safe. And that, I think, is a fun thing to report on. Dr. Jarvis mentioned the other big news in elementary. I just wanted to add one piece to the ribbon cutting and the dedication of this building, and that is, I'd encourage you to go to our website. If you go there and you look up under the Pioneer ribbon cutting, you can find a great video that Stephanie and her team put together for the event. You can look at the program, and if you're so inclined, you can watch the replay of the ribbon cutting event. So I think it's a big milestone event, and I think it's exciting. Now, okay, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. I'm going to stay up here, though, to talk about, okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Follow Tanya's protocol, though. Make sure we clean things up here. Thank you, John. And again, congratulations, board, Dr. Jarvis, and everyone else for holding our first in-person meeting and holding it here at Pioneer Elementary School. Very exciting, very exciting. I'm going to touch on a couple things here, and I'm going to start with middle schools, and we're going to talk a little bit about the return to in-person learning and the remote learning side of our middle schools. As you know, today was the first day back. It was the first day where all of the hard work, all of the planning, the cleaning, the moving of furniture, the counseling and arranging of classes, all of that came to fruition today. And it was really nice to start off third trimester. I started my day at Harbor Ridge Middle School and then spent some time at Peninsula Middle School. And staff were thrilled to have sixth graders coming in. Sixth graders were a little bit scared on some ends, but they really felt made welcome, and they had a great day. And I would just say, as I was at parent drop-off, there were a lot of happy parents dropping off sixth graders as well. So again, just a lot of hard work, a lot of components that came together to make that happen today with the first day of sixth graders. That was preceded by some very successful parent nights. On Monday night, we had approximately 110 attendees at a parent night for our remote middle school learners. I do have to add that probably around 15 of those were our remote middle school teachers. And so I just really appreciate the dedication they showed to be there that evening, to introduce themselves to parents and to connect. It's not back to school night where they come in and sit down and you have a handshake, but just to be able to see the face of your teacher. And again, those teachers are going to be accepting students from all 4 middle schools, so I thought it was really great that they were able to attend that meeting and introduce themselves. All of our buildings, the administrators held their own parent nights for hybrid in-person learning. They had anywhere from roughly 80 to 120 parents attend on each of the 4 middle schools. They reported that those were very successful nights. Many parents got their questions answered. There was a lot of discussion about logistics and trying to really understand what that's all going to look like from the time the buses arrive or parent drop-off occurs until the students arrive back home. And so it was just really a valuable opportunity. And again, I want to emphasize it was a valuable opportunity for the parents of our remote learners on Monday night, as well as for our in-person learners. We want all of our students to have an excellent experience as we kick off third trimester, no matter what platform they're in. So just a lot of compliments to our building administrators, and I thank all of you for honoring our counselors and registrars at our last meeting as well. They've been working extremely hard. Just a few anecdotes from the day. Again, I spent part of my day at Harbor Ridge and at KPMS, and again, from parent drop-off, it just went very smoothly. Very smoothly. Very few backups, not a big long line of students. Pavement was marked, all the kids stayed 6 feet apart. They needed a little reminder here and there, but they stayed 6 feet apart. They're sixth graders in middle school, and sometimes they don't understand their space, but they did a great job. One of the questions I asked both groups of administrators at those 2 buildings when we got done is, are we ready to do this time 3 on Monday when the 7th and 8th graders join? Do we have the capacity to do that? And it was a resounding yes. This went really well. We can go ahead and do this times 3, and we will be very successful at it. So that was exciting to see. It was a huge opportunity for our 6th graders, brand new to the building. Huge opportunity for them to become better acquainted with their teachers and other adults in the building, and a huge opportunity just for them to become acquainted and acclimated to the building. And I'll just share a quick story with you. I walked into a math classroom at Harbor Ridge, and it was a 7th grade advanced math class. There were 5 or 6 students in there. And the teacher was working with them, just kind of a get to know you, how's it gone so far, and it was just the first or second period of the day. And the one young lady in there said, or one young man said, it was kind of hard to find your classroom, and the other young girl said, yeah, I didn't know where the stairwell was. And we don't think about things like that. And then she said, is there more than one stairwell? And it just dawned on me that, you know what, we really just need to take them out and walk those sixth graders around the building for 15 or 20 minutes. Because just those simple things and helping them feel comfortable about getting from class to class, knowing how lunch works and all of those things, it was just very valuable to do it in a small setting with that group of sixth graders. KPMS reported the same thing. As a matter of fact, when I stopped into a classroom there, the teacher finished the presentation and said, okay, everybody get up, we're going to go out in the hall 6 feet apart, and we are going to take a field trip. And it's just walking the campus and becoming familiar. It was time very well spent. I'm going to ask John to comment a little bit about Goodman and Kopacek because he had the opportunity to spend some time there this morning. There you go, John.
I'll be brief, as it's mostly the same experience that you heard from Dan. I think everyone appreciated the slow roll aspect to this. 60 approximately students at each school is all that we were talking about today. Another 60 will come in tomorrow, and then they'll join their 7th and 8th grade cohorts on Monday and Tuesday. And it's always kind of a nerve-wracking first day for any sixth grader, anytime they first start in middle school. I still remember my own twins just doing that. Doesn't, now they're juniors, but it seemed like yesterday. And that's a nervous day. And I did see a lot of nervousness, but I also saw some smiles. I saw teachers trying to make jokes and lighten the mood, and it worked. And the students were starting to relax as they got settled in. And I think everyone appreciated that this opportunity, by breaking it up this way, helped ease these students into that experience. It'll make it easier for them. Obviously, it's tough to be entering your school as a sixth grader in late February. So,
and I'm going to ask Gig Harbor High School Principal Michelle Suter and Peninsula Principal Joe Potts to come up, and I'll just finish a few comments while I transition to high schools. One thing when I was at KPMS that Mr. Frost asked the kids at the end of lunch and in another setting, so was today better than you expected it was going to be? And they all, to a person, even the cool ones that don't like to raise their hand, raised their hand and said, yes, it's been better than we expected. We've asked Dr. Potts and Ms. Suter here to talk a little bit about the upcoming high school return. Freshmen again on the 11th and 12th, and the rest of the students on the 15th. I would just say the amount of time, effort, and I'm going to use this word, time, effort, and emotion that has been spent getting ready for the high schools has just been tremendous. And one of the principals wrote me that and said, this has been really an emotional experience. And there has been a tremendous amount of time, effort, and emotion. So I would first of all like to thank both of you for leading those efforts. And then I'm going to turn it over to you. And Michelle's going to go first.
Thank you. He's modeling what we're going to teach our students to do when they come back. Thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Michelle Suter. I'm the principal of Gig Harbor High School. I'm nervous not because I'm in front of the board or my bosses, but because actually Mrs. Pearson was my son's junior high science teacher. And he is a fine young man now. I just have to tell you that. So, but we might have had some moments. Okay. But I just wanted to say thank you also because this is the first time I've met you in person for a lot of you. And so I just want to thank you for the privilege that you have given me to serve our community. So thank you so much for that. We have been working very hard and we are terribly excited. I just want to kind of revisit a little bit. We actually began this work back in July, August. I was going to say late spring, early summer with a hybrid plan for hybrid. So we had a lot of the pre-work done. And then when we went into the fall and we went to remote, we flipped that, and then we began, really again, probably late October, November, the work of the committee, which is an awesome thing because a part of this process all the way along it's a collaborative process with our stakeholders. So we've had teachers, admin, district admin, building principals, everybody involved, union representatives. It has been an incredible process all the way along. So we are very excited. We did probably the tremendous amount of work in the last few weeks, especially with our counselors. So thank you. On behalf of myself, our principals, our team, thank you so much for recognizing the work of our counselors and registrars as they began the very hard task of creating an A, B, C, really, cohorts. And it is not an easy thing when we have our singletons, our AP classes, and things like that. So there have been lots of puzzle pieces to put together. But as for where we are right now, we are ready. We're in process of getting our buildings, just like the junior high or middle schools have done, moving furniture, putting down stickers and tape, getting all of our protocols in place. We have had some students already on campus, which is great because we've had an opportunity to experience what that will look like anyway. And we're just excited. We have a theater production coming up this weekend, and we're having sports again. And I don't even know why I'm here because our student school board reps are awesome. So, so thanks you guys, and we're just really, really excited for all that's ahead.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Jarvis. It's a pleasure to be here. And I echo everything Michelle said. We're excited to have our students back, and it's just something about when Hope started talking about all the things that are going on. It just brought an energy to the room and lifted my heart a little bit. So I want to say thank you to our students. I want to say thank you also to our counselors and our registrar and our administrative teams. They have worked so hard to get organized and to be ready for, you know, our 9th graders in a week and a half, and then everybody else after that. And we've actually revised a master schedule, and it usually takes about a month and a half to do a master schedule. We did it in a week and a half. So it was a Herculean task, and there were a lot of people that pitched in because they really cared desperately about the success of everybody in the school district. And so I want to say thank you to all the people, all of our teams. We worked a lot together as well, and that's really a hopeful thing too, at least for me. Thank you to our students and our families and our parents for their patience. Right now we're putting students into A-B tracks, and it's a little uneven, and we're moving and mixing and matching so that we have even distribution so that we can meet the room specifications so we keep people safe. So we've asked people to be patient, and we're very thankful for that. But in the end, I guarantee it will be very organized, and we'll have a successful sort of reopening and a launch of the hybrid model. I want to say a word or two about our sports teams. And we did compete the other night in a kind of a weird way on the football field, but you know, we did the same thing in soccer, and it was oddly comforting. It brought a sense of normalcy back to the world, to see our students and our athletes competing. And so I think we're getting there, and it certainly has been a team effort. I want to thank the administration, also assistant superintendents and superintendent for their support, and the board also for its confidence in us. And I think we're looking forward to a great sort of reopening in a week or two.
Thank you, Michelle and Joe. It has been hard work, but I have to say it's been fun. I enjoy working with both Joe and Michelle and their teams, and you know, if you can't laugh and smile and have a little joy and humor, then it becomes kind of a drag, but we make sure we have a lot of fun and get that work done. 2 other quick points. I just want to, as you decide on a name this evening, just want to let you know I had the chance to meet with Mr. Brooks and his core team, was that yesterday afternoon, trying to keep track of the days. And just want to compliment David for his leadership and the team for just being a really solid team. Really enjoyed and really was impressed with the work they were doing as they create a school culture from the ground up, as they create a learning model and the accompanying success criteria from the ground up. It is just really exciting, quality, collaborative work. And then one last final thing I want to make mention of. It was about a year ago that I believe Dr. Potts and Mary Kate Grant were in front of you as a board. Maybe it was a little longer than a year ago. And they talked about the impact that our partnership with Crossroads had on their students. That was our group that we partnered with to come in and support some of our students in their health. Sarah Hoover sent me a text today that we got a call from a parent who said, hey, I just want to thank you for that connection. What you're doing with that group is helping my child to be healthy and clean. The other thing I would add is 2 days ago, might have been actually it was yesterday also, I had the opportunity to attend a graduation. And it wasn't a high school graduation, it was a graduation, our first student that had started with Crossroads had gone to an inpatient treatment facility, had come back and successfully completed all of the aftercare and had completed his program. And that's a celebration. And I had the chance to talk to his grandfather. And he said, "Thank you. This isn't about academics. You saved my grandson's life." And that's just huge. So that was a very huge celebration, and I wanted to share that with you as well. So thank you very much.
We have questions?
Oh, questions?
First, I'd just like to say, I think I probably speak for the whole board, is that, give the entire school district staff, teachers, parents, I mean, everybody, a big shout out for being a leader in the state, for showing the way, how to bring our kids back safely. It's not perfect. We obviously would like to have everyone back, but we've clearly set an example that when we have school districts across the state calling our school district for advice, that's really something to be proud of. We all know that the Fish Bowl is way more important than the Super Bowl. And I would like to, Joe left before I put him on the spot, but was there a friendly wager between the two principals on who went?
You know what, Joe is so merciful. We have had friendly wagers. We didn't put one on this one because we were just so excited. I mean, we lost our minds. And apparently there's a lot more people that show up, right? Because I went there and I didn't
Oh my gosh.
This is what I hear. It's my first time, but not a wager this time. But we did wager one other time. I lost, took a pie to the face, but he graciously took a pie to the face as well. And so next year, I think we might up the ante.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Like you said, all good fun. So I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you learned the lesson about having the new sixth graders come in, and hopefully you'll do something similar for the ninth graders when they get to the high school, to make sure that they sort of get, be able to have a chance to walk around so they know where they're at. So hopefully that's a lesson learned. So anybody, board? Chuck?
Your comments on the crossroads. Do you know how many students are utilizing that service?
We were very active last year, and the pandemic slowed the work down. I'm going to take a really, really rough guess, and I would say they're still probably working with between 6 to 10 students on a regular basis.
Okay. And I understand that's not only high schools, but down into middle school?
I think they're all high schools currently. Our goal, when we return to a little more normalcy, is to do more of the prevention work at the middle level so that we have to do less of the intervention work at the high school level.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
That's our goal.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the update on the middle school and high school return. I've been hearing bits and pieces of how it's all worked. One of my questions is, and I don't know if it's for two of you or Michelle or even Melissa. So as I understand it, if I'm an 8th grader and I am in remote, I may not have a teacher that's at my traditional or home middle school. I may have Kopachuk or Goodman. So if I'm in geometry and my teacher got me to this point, but the class is remote and there's, kids from 5 or 6 different classes, all at different parts of the chapters or curriculum. What did we do to help combat that or help bridge that for those students?
So I can answer that, because you know what, when we had our remote parent night on Monday night, a parent who has a student in algebra asked the same question. The understanding that that parent had is you all left in different places at the end of second try. How are you going to come together? And before John or myself or Melissa could answer, our remote algebra teacher was waving her hand. And I said, "Kelsey, go for it."
Yeah.
And she said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, whatever school you're from, I've met with all the middle school algebra teachers. I understand exactly where everybody left off. I know how I'm going to start my first day and run with it." And our teachers have gotten together and collaborated, so they're all They might not all be on the same, and this is a figurative, not a literal. They might not all be on the same page, but they're all in the same chapter, and again, that's figurative, not literal. So
Yeah.
they're close, and they've collaborated, and they understand that. Right after that, one of the English teachers chimed in and said, we've been meeting across the district, and we know where each other's at. So they've really done a nice job with that. Let's leave it to the student. Connor's on it.
So, as kind of mentioned, I'm in a high school and I chose remote, you know, like my father's high risk and stuff. So, I am in a Peninsula English class. So, basically, all of the kids, in what she stated at the very first, basically 5 minutes, hey, I know you were on this whole thing, you guys just submitted your essay for final of the semester, and I've already talked with all your teachers at Gig Harbor and figured out where exactly you all were and what you were just about to start, and I talked with all the Peninsula teachers to make sure what we were doing and what we knew what we were doing. Yeah. And we kind of are going into a separate path. Not like they were doing one thing, we had finished another, and so now we're just kind of converging onto one path, and we're all starting to do the same thing together. I don't know if that's a little bit easier in English than it is in math, but we're starting to do a whole new subject together as like one class kind of thing.
So you didn't feel lost?
Oh,
or
absolutely
further
not.
lost? It's fantastic. Please thank the teachers and the math teacher that's doing all of that, because that was one fear I had, is kids coming back and feeling lost because they might not be on the same page as the rest. And then can you explain to me, because I didn't get to see it today at Harbor Ridge, but what does lunch look like at middle school and high school?
You know, I took pictures when I was out in the building, but I didn't have time to get back this afternoon to put together a slideshow. At both Key Peninsula Middle School and at Harbor Ridge Middle School, the Commons is not filled with tables and other things. It's filled with desks and chairs.
Okay.
And there's at least 6 feet, and I say that because I think Mr. Frost at Key Peninsula actually made the Commons more than 6 feet. But they had over 70 desks. I'd have to look at my pictures. I think I got the numbers on the front, hanging on the front tabs. But those are all 6 feet apart, facing one direction. Students will come in. I believe the plan is they select their seat. I know the plan at Key Peninsula is they select their seat. Mr. Frost and Mr. Selfors had stickers with the students' names on them, and then they put the sticker there, and that's that student's seat every day. So they're limited, they've limited their close contacts, they've identified the seat that they're going to come back to every day, and they're all socially distanced.
So when you times that by 3 on Monday, what happens to the 70 seats? Now you need 240.
So 2 lunches, so that helps us out, and more than one location. At Key Peninsula Middle School, there's a drape that blocks off the larger portion of the gym from the smaller portion.
Yeah.
The smaller portion of the gym is where the 6th graders will have lunch, and then the Commons is where the 7th and 8th graders will have lunch on any given day. So they've really calculated it out. When I talked to Mr. Benoit and Mr. Wickens, I believe they have 229 students on one day and 231 on the B day. And so they've got a seat for everybody. When you divide those by 2 and get into 2 lunches, they've got a seat for everybody on each day.
Is that okay, and high school, that's kind of a similar plan of what they're
We
doing.
have 2 locations right now. We have the Commons and then we have the main gym that's already set up with stickers where students can sit, and then they do have to sit in the same seat throughout their time.
And Dan, when you were out at Kobuchuk for lunch, it sounds like you were, no, excuse me, KPMS for lunch, what were the kids' mood at lunch? I want to get a sense of that. I can go see it for myself though too, I guess.
They did a really nice job. First of all, Katie Walters and the food service crew, they had bagged lunches, a couple different choices. Kids walk by, pick up their bags. They have really long half tables with benches at KPMS, so they were able to sit, I think it was 3 rows and kids on each end of those, so there were 6 feet between all of them. And they did a really nice job eating lunch, and then they put their masks back on, and most of them sat, looked at their phones, or talked with one another, but they waited till their masks were back on.
Yeah.
There was a couple of boys that, again, they're 6th grade boys, so it's like this, and Mrs. Gable had to go say, hey, you know, keep your 6 feet apart. You guys can talk with your masks on, but they really did a nice job. There were no issues with masks. Both buildings kind of roughed it out and said we probably had around 90, maybe 90+% of students who brought their attestation forms in, so they had to do very little follow-up on that today. So masks and attestations, it really went quite smoothly.
Thanks for sharing that.
Certainly. But, any question?
Yeah, just one. Can one of you remind us again what Wednesday looks like for middle and high school? They're on with all their teachers, is that correct?
That's correct. They are people that all remote on Wednesdays, and so they'll have all 6 periods remotely via Zoom. There's shorter class periods, including a homeroom, and then kind of a student support time as well in there. And that's the exact same model for those that are on the remote. The nice thing about that is our students have been able to keep their homeroom teachers, because because some of our teachers went to remote, but they have relationships, so they'll be able to maintain those relationships with their homeroom teachers on those Wednesdays and still have that community.
Good, okay, thanks.
30-minute classes plus homeroom, 45 minutes at the high school. The middle schools are doing their flex period on their 4 days, so they have 40-minute classes.
Okay, is it a teaching time or is it more of interactive, just checking in?
It can be whatever the teacher chooses, but we want it to be instructional in nature. Whether that's some remediation time, some catch-up time, might be new content.
Okay.
Basically, we just said when you're planning a unit, plan to use your Wednesdays.
Okay. Thank you.
My questions were all asked. I just wanted to thank you for thinking of the 6th and the 9th graders. I think that was a really important step to get them comfortable in the buildings before the class community. And I do have just one question. I'm not sure if you have the answer or not. Any hope for middle school sports?
Can you repeat the?
Okay. There's hope. There's always hope. We can hope.
Is there hope for middle school sports?
I might defer to Dr. Jarvis on that one. We'll just kind of see how it goes, I think.
We basically didn't have a structure that in the timing, so that's been a question. We simply held off when we get that. And it's because of the people, we didn't have a way. The WIAA led the way on the high school, defining the 2 sports seasons and what could happen. And of course, some of that happened at the very last second. So we deferred on the middle school until we could get a little clearer vision of what it actually looked like and get this work done.
Sure. And I think they have more access to youth sports, and they can still play, which is curious.
So for me, I'd heard that our middle schoolers, because of the hybrid model, they'll get actually 2 days with an actual teacher, and then the other 3 days a week, they'll really won't have any interaction with a teacher. And so my concern about that will be, if a parent's at home working remotely and their middle schooler's off, supposed to be doing their work, or maybe parents at work and not home with their middle schoolers just because they can't be with, is that unless they're highly motivated, the middle schoolers we might see a lot of, and I don't know who to look at, but as far as, I'm worried about lost learning at the middle school level, because they're only going to have 2 days a week with a teacher, and the other 3 days are basically going to be on their own. And so I'd just like either one of you want to answer your thoughts on that potential.
I'm happy to dive in. I would just say the model that we ended up with was really a product, and it was mentioned earlier, a product of the partnership we had and the advisory group that we had that included teachers and counselors. And one of the things they really wanted was as many touches a week as we could get. So there are 2 in-person touches, but there's also that Wednesday touch, and that's a change from what Wednesdays currently look like. Wednesdays now will be much more structured. They will be, as Lori asked, they will be much more instructional in nature and less downtime on Wednesdays. And that was something, again, that came from that advisory group. The other thing we learned first semester is if we try to teach really hard one day and assign a pretty significant amount of homework on the next day, that doesn't substitute for learning. So what we've really discussed multiple times is let's make sure that at-home day that we're really focusing on the independent practice that is really high leverage, so really less independent practice, but more high leverage independent practice. And then also use our resources. Use our resources to get kids ready for the next day. We use an example of a math class. Teach your math concept, really do a good job of checking for understanding while you have the students in front of you, and then assign fewer high leverage math problems, and then maybe put a link on your Schoology page to Khan Academy that goes through the next concept so students get a jump start on that next concept. It's really just making the most efficient use of the in-school time and the at-home time. The motivation piece, David, that is one we'll just continue to work with parents on, and how can we support you?
Okay, and do you think maybe in a couple weeks you could do a check-in with the schools, or I don't know how you could check in and just see how it's going and just give us a update on if you're hearing any negative issues from the either teacher or parent side? I'd just like to know how it's working in 2 weeks in this new hybrid model. If you could do it for us.
Yeah, we've asked the site councils from each school to monitor the safety side on a 2-week basis, and our line has been monitor and adjust. We've never done this
talk about
before.
lost
Monitor
learning.
and
Just,
adjust.
I'm more talking about lost learning, and so I'd like to have student reps. Abigail, you have any questions to ask of them about this? Do you have any brothers or sisters in middle school?
No, I don't. I'm the youngest of like 5 kids.
Okay, how about you? Oh,
Just 2 quick questions. Are Wednesdays still going to be collaboration? So will they start an hour later?
They will. Our
Okay.
teachers will still collaborate. For the first part of the
Okay.
day.
And then just like a quick comment, I coach gymnastics at NASA, and I coach lots of different ages, and getting to see them throughout the weeks, getting to go back to school, their energy levels have just been skyrocketing, and they've been so excited about being back in person, and especially now, like the older kids watching their younger siblings go back and now having the opportunity, they're super excited. So definitely.
can I ask you the same question? Do you have any brothers or sisters in middle school?
No.
Okay. And then Connor?
I'm all good, like, just great job on the whole thing, because I know that my sister is in high school, not necessarily a 9th grader, but she's a 10th grader, and she really is a social person, and has had a hard time with this remote learning thing. So I really appreciate the effort that you guys are trying to do to make sure that kids like her are able to get her education and truly get back into some normalcy stuff.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Art.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd just like to offer really a thanks to Michelle and Dan and John and Dr. Potts, who had to leave. This is probably the most complex work that I have ever seen in my whole career in order to pull this off. And complex in any number of ways. You're touching on some of those, but just the logistics alone, to say nothing of how do you take a singleton class with one teacher and end up with 3 different groups, and anyway, keep going. So my sincere, this happened to be the day or two where if you were watching the news, at least 2 large districts announced that the kids would not be able to come back this year. They simply literally could not figure out and get through all the logistics to make it work. And this has been a labor of love, and Michelle talked about the fact that they started last summer and they had to redo it over and over and over to try to figure out how to make all the pieces work. You can really extend out throughout the system. With Katie and her lunches, I was going to tease you, Mr. Dawson, when you asked, the lunch looks like a brown bag. But even that one, Katie wasn't satisfied. She gave them choices because this district has done that kind of work. And I was just absolutely astounded. So my deepest thanks to the teaching staff, the counseling staff, the registrars, everybody for really putting this together and pulling it off. But it's by no means going to be perfect. We are going to have to watch and figure out what didn't work as well as we thought, and how to move it forward. But the fact that we could get young people back in the school and we could still honor those that didn't feel like that was the right thing for them, and then to split it into groups so that we could meet all the social distancing, was a tribute to the work and the brilliance these people did. So that's my way of saying thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have a report from the Department of Learning and Innovation, Melissa Wiesner.
got a career after this.
I can't tell you how thrilling it is to be in a room with students. Adults, great. It's really great to be here with all the adults. But Lisa Ray and I were commenting earlier, we literally haven't seen each other in person since last March. We see each other almost every day in Zoom, but so it's very heartwarming. And I concur, so many thanks. It really does take a village to effectively run a school system, and I really want to point out my extreme gratitude and appreciation to everyone engaged, but especially to the leadership of Dan and John. They really always knew that this would happen, and they never got overly excited or upset. They just said, yes, yes, we can do this, and really did such a great job of engaging all the stakeholders in the group, and I think that's why it's been successful. So again, thank you. All right, we're going to talk, next slide. Yes. We're going to give you a very brief, Dr. Jarvis, very brief, presentation tonight. You're going to see me come back to you about social studies and adoptions because we have a new way of doing adoptions in the district. It's a much more complex, longer process, engages more stakeholders, and is very transparent. And I want to make sure that as we move forward, that we all have that understanding of the scope of the work. And I want to point out that the collaborative process that goes into an adoption for us now is as important, and in my opinion, because I'm not teaching with materials, more important than what we actually end up with in terms of resources. Because the teachers are able to do professional learning with each other, they collaborate, they're talking across schools, across areas. So breaking down those silos and making sure that their students have high quality resources to support their learning. And in this case, secondary, which would be 6th through 12th grade social studies. I want to take you back to the mission, and this was developed, believe it or not, last February of 2020, by the group that is still together working on the adoption. And this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to be informed by multiple perspectives. They wanted to have kids become critical problem solvers in a global community. And we aim to provide powerful and rigorous experiences for students who will be doing this, engaging with significant ideas. And engaging doesn't mean listening to a lecture only or only engaged in a book. It's engaged in conversation with each other, engaged with students across the district, and engaged with students really across the world. Those are all open doors for us. They want to connect what they are learning with some prior knowledge. So yes, we do have to learn dates and facts and history, but that isn't all social studies is about, right? It's what is current and why do people, why have they done what they've done, and why do we do things the way we do now? And importantly, that kids can think critically. It doesn't really matter what content you're talking about. These are what we expect and want for all of our learners. And importantly, and we're hearing this over and over from employers, that our students can communicate ideas effectively in multiple ways. Whether they're speaking in front of a group, whether they're doing a podcast, whether they're sending out an appropriate tweet. I don't know TikTok, so I'm assuming it's all appropriate. The kids are kind of looking at my kids. So that's the mission, and it remains. And this is what we always go back to and say, when we're going through the process, when we're having conversations, when we're considering options, is this meeting the need? Because this is where we started. All right, next slide. So our current timeline, we had vendor presentations, and we reached consensus on pilot curriculum. So currently, they're piloting in classrooms, and during the pilots, this is what's happening. Teacher, student, and parent surveys are being collected, and a variety of these following focus groups are engaged in the work. So we have middle school students, obviously, high school students, EL parents, community open houses, which Ashley Stonehan, our instructional facilitator for secondary social studies and ELA, have been holding. Our resource teachers are also engaged in that work, as is our equity, diversity, and inclusion committee. So again, lots and lots of people at the table having conversations about what are we looking at and what are we thinking about. All right, next slide. So this just gives you a breakdown of the pilot participation. So every teacher is going to pilot both materials. So every grade level has 2 different pilots that they're working with, and they'll make a choice of 1 at the end. But they're working with 2, and each teacher will spend time with both of those curriculum. Because if you do one and you don't do the other, then you don't know, and it becomes your favorite. So we want to give teachers and students access to different experiences. So when you look at the district total, a total of 87% of all our secondary social studies teachers have chosen to pilot. That's extra work, that's extra effort, and that's extra time for them. So, you know, to have that many students, 87% of those students having access to this 2 different curriculum and taking a look and providing feedback to us as well as teachers. I just want to give a big shout out to teachers and say thank you so very much for taking this on. It's important to them. They've been waiting a while to have this happen, and they are absolutely engaged in the work. And I want to say that this is Ashley Stolhan, Natalie Boyle, and I are on the committees, but we are not voting members, right? This is not, you know, the curriculum instruction department, the DLI, sitting up in an office somewhere, making decisions without feedback and without input. So this really is driven by the teachers, facilitated by the teachers, and the choices will be made by the teachers. And you can see that that's a lot of teachers making a choice. So it isn't 2 or 3 teachers, right? It's all schools engaged. All right. So that's what I have. Next steps will be in April and May. We'll be committing, coming to a consensus on the particular curriculum for each grade level. That will go to the Instructional Advisory Committee. Once we have approval from that committee, which again is a multi-stakeholder committee that meets, and again, lots of opportunities for questions. And then after that, we'll come for 2 reads to the board, just like we did with the elementary STEM, and we'll be seeking approval for each of the different grade levels. All right. Any questions, comments for me?
You have any questions?
Sure, I just, so to be clear, we're not changing what we're teaching, we're just changing the curriculum that we're using because the state standards haven't changed, right? So whatever we select still has to meet those existing standards.
That's exactly right. Okay. I would say that they did update the state standards. They updated those in 2018. And so those are the standards that we're working on.
Okay.
Or if you ask a question, can you speak up for the
Yes,
rest of us?
I do not have a question.
Oh, no question?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Chuck, do you have any questions?
Is there an opportunity to preview some of this curriculum?
Of what?
Is there an opportunity to preview some of the curriculum?
Yes, that will be part of it that we'll be doing. Once we get a little further down, we will have those parent open house nights.
Okay.
If you can go back, Tanya, and I can send the dates. That information should all be in the brief that we sent you, so you know that we send you a longer brief that covers a lot more information, so you have that background. So I'm just giving you highlights. So yes, but Chuck will make sure that you have those dates.
Melissa, do you know, are any of the remote teachers that are teaching social studies piloting, or you okay, good. That's good to know, because I want, if that's a pathway we continue, which I'm hoping that's something we look at, that it's a successful curriculum with the remote too. Kind of on Natalie and Chuck's question that they're addressing, you said it doesn't, you know, it's more, the curriculum's more of how you're teaching and what you're engaging the kids in, and the skills they're learning from that, which I think is great. But you said that what we're teaching, the content really doesn't matter. It's more of, you know, how and what in this curriculum. And I know there's state standards and all of that, but I'd like to challenge that. Like, I know that my kids have almost finishing now, and they had U.S. history, Washington State history, they got a lot of European history. Have we ever really looked at, let's explore some more of this world? I mean, I think about the Native Americans coming tonight. Can we start bringing more of that in and be intentional about it? I think it's fantastic we're doing Black History month, and I've been able to listen to my son's remote classes, and I applaud, every class is talking about it, but is it an intentional learning opportunity that we're giving our kids? A lot of there, not know how you want to address it.
Yes, actually, thank you for your question, and I want to clarify. When I say it doesn't matter what content, these ideas about engaging with significant ideas, connecting what they're learning, thinking critically, and communicating effectively, that applies to all and any content.
Yeah.
So the content in social studies absolutely does matter, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, our social studies textbooks are decades old. And so you can imagine we've missed quite a bit of contemporary, well, not for them, but contemporary history. So we are looking at it through very much an equity lens. Sorry. I'm back.
Help the cameraman.
Through an equity lens, and for example, we really haven't looked at any kind of African history in the course of 6th grade social studies. I taught 6th grade, so I know that's, and we have all gone in saying, hey, and every single teacher there has said, what's happening, what are the perspectives, whose voice is at the table, what are we looking at? So yes, we are going to be multicultural, multilinguistic, multi-everything, so that multiple perspectives can be examined in the course of, any one event. We know that in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We also don't really ever talk about the Reconquista that was happening in Spain, right? So how are those things connected, and what caused those things? Why did Columbus come out? What was going on? So.
And I'm on the committee, which is really great.
Yes.
So I've had an opportunity to see the whole process, and I'm also a former history teacher, and so I have skin in the game in that sense. And I've been so pleased to watch the process, and also I'm really focused on content because I've seen a real shift and some really good things happen as a result of it, so I'm really encouraged.
Okay.
Very much so, yes. Yeah. So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that you are going to be incredibly pleased because all of the content or all of the curriculum we're looking at are really, really good. And sometimes content is being added overnight. It can happen that quickly.
So I want to just say thank you for saying that content does matter, because I wasn't going to let you off the hook that easy. Because it matters a lot to me, and it's nice that you engage with them and connect with them, but I think the content matters a great deal. And that's why I want to make sure that plenty of parents have an opportunity to get their eyes on it. One of my questions is, on the slide up there, it shows that you met with the vendors just in January last month, and they only have through March 2 months to test the product out. Is that normal? It seems like that's not very much time for them, for the parents and the staff and the students to get a sense of how that's going to work out with only 2 months to do it. So can you talk a little bit about that, just about why such a short amount of time?
In this case, we're working on a timeline because our goal is to have new resources in the hands of the kids in the fall. And so the piloting takes a period of time, plus the approvals from IAC, plus the double read here at the board meeting. So that's what we're working on. And, the committee is comprised largely of teachers and administrators. So teachers will be done, and so we can't go too much longer in terms of June, right? So we want to have that all wrapped up and ready to go so we can start the ordering process. They'll spend a month on each curriculum. And because there's so many of them doing it, right, that we can talk. You're teaching civics and I'm teaching, world history. We can have some conversations about what that looks like.
Okay. And I noticed that on the one slide about, where is it? Some of the 100% participation in some grades, only 66% in others. Obviously, I don't know how do the teachers decide whether or not they want to do it or not? And I would ask, is that something they do in their own time? Do they get paid extra to participate? So how would we I mean, 87% is a good amount, but how you, I mean, is that above average for the participation? Okay, so do they get paid to participate or just it's on their own?
Well, the work that they're doing is during the course of the day and they're teaching. So when they're planning, they would be planning with their old curriculum or they would be planning with the pilot curriculum. I'm not saying that they're not doing extra work, because they certainly are, because it's new to them too, right? But they have volunteered to take this on because they are incredibly passionate and dedicated, and they really, really are interested in seeing this happen for next fall.
Okay, and I know oftentimes, in the 8 years I've been on the board, oftentimes you get the same parents volunteer to look at stuff or be on the committees. It's the same ones every time. You know, I'm hoping that we'll be able to find a way to make sure we get a broad group of parents to take a look. And I don't want to let our student reps not have an opportunity to have any questions to ask about this since you're a high school either. Okay, all right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you're gonna play it?
Oh, sorry. Next up, we have a report from Special Programs Department, John Yellowes.
Okay, good evening to the school board, Superintendent Jarvis, and thank you for your time this evening. I'm actually just going to be up here really briefly. I have one slide, and I'll turn it over to Lisa Ray, our Director of Special Programs. So I'm just here to say that over the next few months, you will notice a student services theme in the board presentations, and we serve a number of categorical programs under student services, and as you can see on this slide here, these are some of the presentations you'll hear about in the coming months. So we did meet with you, our Director of Special Education, presented in December, I believe it was, on special education. Lisa's going to share some information tonight about special programs, early childhood. We'll come to you next month with Highly Capable, and the following month with some information about our English language learner program. So in student services, we also work with and support our school nurses and school counselors, as well as Section 504, ADA, Title IX, and McKinney-Vento. So just looping back real quick to our nurses and counselors, and this has been said already about our school counselors, but just again, a special shout out to them, not only for the work that they've done over the past several weeks in preparing and scheduling and rescheduling and working with our middle and high school hybrid schedules, but also over the past year, they've done remarkable work working with our students on their social emotional needs and academic needs. And we're super fortunate to have a great group of school counselors in the school district. Same is true for our school nurses. They've, needless to say, been instrumental over the past year. A great deal of work on their part and change in their roles in many cases, and working with COVID and helping us with our protocols and procedures, and even coordinating and working with our current COVID testing of students in the school district right now. So again, talented group of nurses, LPNs, health techs, and we're just really fortunate. Big shout out to them, and thank you to them for all their work over the past year. And with that, I will wipe off my surface here and turn it over to Lisa Ray, our Director of Special Programs.
And I'm going to try really hard not to fog up while doing this. Get used to that. Thank you, Board and Dr. Jarvis, for having me tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that we've been working through around early learning particularly, and I also wanted to share with you how we are going to approach our supports for our youngest children by an integrated approach and looking at all of our programs and thinking how can we wrap our services around them rather than think of them as individual programs. So I do want to start by acknowledging our youngest learners and the teachers that we have been fortunate to work with, our preschool through first grade teachers. Their hard work, our principals, John, Dan, the board, all of your leadership has allowed our youngest children, our youngest learners, to have the shortest hiccup in their school experience. They were out in March and they got back in September, and we really should all be super proud of that. And our children are so incredibly resilient. Being in those classrooms, you wouldn't even know. They come to school for their teacher. They come to school to see the magic happen, and they may have masks on and they might have to stay away from their friends, but there's still magic. And so I think that's really important to acknowledge. The other thing I want to acknowledge is the irony or the incredible significance of standing in this room where 2 years ago, when we could not find a place for our lost portables where we lost our preschool program, and this was the home for them for a good year. And I'm so excited to talk to you tonight about how we are going to approach thinking about our youngest learners going forward. We have this opportunity, thanks to all of your hard work and the new buildings opening, we are going to have classroom space. And we should take advantage of that opportunity. I'll let you go to the next slide, I guess the next follow slide. Tonight I'm going to lay out a roadmap, and I'm going to address 3 things that I want to talk about. You can go to the next slide. 3 things that I want to highlight that we really are looking into providing for our youngest learners as we get started next year. You have the background information for a lot of the other stops along the way, so if you want me to address any of those or have questions, I'm certainly happy to follow up with you later about that as well. But tonight I want to talk about particularly the idea around transitional kindergarten. In 2018, the state began to investigate the opportunity to use basic ed funding to provide a kindergarten program for children who have just missed the cutoff for kindergarten, so it's the year prior to kindergarten. And so they are basic ed students. They get a whole extra experience in school. We do a jump start in the summer, but I like to think of this as a jump start for 6 months. So the group of students who did not have a chance to go to preschool, and really there are students, every year we have a group of students in our kindergarten classrooms where the teachers are like, I just wish we'd seen them before. I wish we had a chance to have a little bit more time with them. This is that kind of program. So we would look at developing an opportunity to find 3 sites in the Peninsula School District where we would have a transitional kindergarten program starting in January of 2022. And the reason we start in January for a couple of reasons. One, it takes time to find the students, and they have to be not have been kindergarten age. So if you're of kindergarten age, you're going to kindergarten, we're going to embrace you and we're going to find the supports for you, and I'll talk about those in a second. But if you're not of kindergarten age yet, and you have not had a chance to go to preschool, this is the perfect opportunity for you. And I really want to build the program based on the model that this is an opportunity to provide a student an extra support rather than a place where somebody might not have been successful if they went to kindergarten. We have sometimes we come with, oh, they weren't ready, and I want to take that language out of our vernacular as much as possible and say we are going to do everything we can to ensure their success. And this is one of those programs. The other thing about transitional kindergarten is that we would be looking for students who need it, and so that's part of the pillars of the transitional program transitional kindergarten program from OSPI is that we would do some sort of assessments. Likely we'd have more students than we have available, and so we need to determine who needs it the most and establish those reasons going forward. The second thing I want to highlight is that this past year we had this blessing of having to have smaller class sizes because we had to stay 6 feet apart. And you can talk to pretty much any kindergarten or first grade teacher and tell you that they know their kids better now than they've ever known. They can provide them so much more intentional support because they have the time and they can get close and they can get to know them and they can find out what their needs are. We propose that we continue that work. We are likely going to have to with COVID in the future, at least for next year, but we think that those intentional planning that we can do around class size and making sure that our kindergarten or first grade classrooms are manageable for our teachers will be an intentional support we can put in place. John also mentioned the work that we're doing with K-2 teachers and early literacy, and really grounded in the work around MTSS and how do we support and have multi-tiered systems of support for children in literacy in kindergarten or first grade. And then lastly, one of the things that we've been doing for quite some time and has been extremely successful is our kindergarten jumpstart model, which has been just traditionally a week in the summer before school. I loved how people were referencing the 6th graders who didn't know where they were going in the stairwell. Imagine being a 5-year-old and never walking into a classroom or a building before. And that's exactly what Jumpstart is designed to do. And this year we would like to expand that to first grade and really focus on the kids who have not had a chance to be in our school system yet. Just because they're remote doesn't mean they're not learning or they haven't had a good experience, but we want to make sure that they are supported in transitioning into our system as well. So it's brief and fast, but there's lots of background information, so if you have any questions, please let me know.
Laura, you have any questions? You want to go first this time if you have a question?
Yeah, just the Jumpstart kindergarten, that's something that you've been doing?
For about 7 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And it's really well attended. Our challenge is finding staff who are interested, but most of our kindergarten teachers want to. We, I think, could grow that and find more teachers and more kids to serve, which is what our ultimate goal is this year.
Yeah. No, I love that, and that it'll include first grade for next year. That's a great idea. Thank you.
We get great help from transportation, they come out with a bus, and the kids get to see what it's like to get on a bus. It's very cool.
Oh, that's really great. Thanks.
And
No, I was just gonna ask, how do you find those students that for the transitional kindergarten?
Because we have ECAP, we have this great model where our family support do know a lot of families that just didn't quite make that cutoff, or they are reaching out. We have folks that call our office all the time saying, do you have a preschool program? Or my child missed preschool and they're not quite ready for kindergarten, or they're not quite at kindergarten age. So it'll be a lot of recruiting. That's part of that 3-month time prior to January, is doing the recruiting and building those relationships, going to locations where families would be, social service locations and things like that, where we maybe would find that they didn't have the chance to connect with the preschool.
So they would contact the district, and then they have to demonstrate some sort of need?
Yeah, part of it is to establish a need, and we will determine that based on, there's lots of districts that are doing this right now, and they have good models already. And we'll be doing some more of that research over the coming months to establish that.
Lisa, thank you. And on the Jump Start, I watched that. It's an amazing program. Why are you expanding to first grade?
Well, I think we have had kindergartners. We've got a lot of kindergartners that are in remote now that haven't been in our building yet. And so they didn't get it last year. They were in preschool, or they missed half of their year. I shouldn't say in person, they missed half their year. And then they have been remote this year. We've got about 200 kindergartners that we didn't see this year. We don't know where they are. They might show up in first grade. They might show up in kindergarten. So we do want to just provide those opportunities.
So it's because of our situation that we're currently in. It's not something that's driven over long term.
I think we can decide if it worked. We'll look at the data and see how well kids transitioned and what kinds of outcomes we had and what those first few months of school look like for kids who participated, and we can decide if that's the right thing to do.
Okay. Thank you for bringing up the smaller class sizes and the impact that has had on children's learning. I know, speaking to a lot of the Vaughn teachers out there, that even prior to COVID last March, some of those kids were behind, and the fact that they've been able to work with them in a smaller class, they're blown away with the progress that these kids have made, and so it's good to hear that that's across the district and happening. So thank you for supporting that.
I guess I could just mimic what Deb was saying. I've been speaking to several teachers who have been really happy with the smaller class sizes, and they're requesting that we keep it that way. But they do say there's been a lot of progress with the smaller class sizes that allow them to really engage. So I see some catching up being done with that. I don't know if it's enough to offset everything else, but it's good to acknowledge.
I had a mid-year conference with a teacher today that said, I know my kids better today than I've ever known them in my entire career because I have so many fewer kids. And so that's a huge thing to think about in terms of their support. So.
Hope?
Thank you.
Nope. Connor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. So next up is old business item number 8.1, the naming of elementary school number 9. At the last, first off, I just want to say thank you for all the input that we've gotten from the community on the naming, not just for the names we heard tonight, but other input as well about how they would like to see us choose, and which makes it even more difficult. And just to recap what we heard a couple weeks ago, there was over 135 names submitted to for the new name, and through a community survey. And the naming committee, how many were on there, Dave? 10 or a dozen people on your committee?
12.
12. So the committee of 12 folks spent some time to vet those names and work them down to 5. And they brought them to the board 2 weeks ago for our review. A couple years ago, the same thing happened, and the names came to the board, and we actually said, can you go back and think about it again? And some of the board members put forth their own names, and then that ended up being Pioneer. That wasn't actually in our first list of 5. So I know the board, was really pleased with the 5 names that the committee brought forward, and I think that says a lot to the hard work that you and your team did, so thank you very much. So what we decided at the last board meeting, that each member would come back tonight with 2 names, not in any particular order. We don't need to know what your number 1 or number 2. We just asked for your 2 names and when I hear a name, I'll tally it. I'll ask the student reps if they want to put forward their names. I mean, I know you're filling in for Tyson, so if you don't, that's okay. But since the student reps are not able to vote, I won't tally their votes because they can't vote. But I still would welcome your opinion if you want to get it. So what we'll do is I'll ask each board member their 2 names, and then we'll look and see how it shakes out, and then we'll have some discussion before we decide to move on. So I don't expect anyone to come up with a name outside the 5, but it's happened before, so you never know. So I will start. What?
Can I
Sure,
just ask a
sure,
question?
absolutely.
So we're just giving our 2 names with no comment,
Good.
and then will there still be a time of comment
Mhm.
even if we all said the same name, let's just say?
Sure.
Okay.
If it's all, I'd be remiss not to allow some comment, so.
I just want to comment.
That's it. David, you waited long enough. Let's drag this out for another couple of hours,
Actually, David, on that, so, because you're tallying, because I want to listen to all the other board members, because while I have 2 names that I'm bringing forward, I want to hear what everyone else says. I may change my mind in that discussion. So I don't know.
Before, I think, what I was thinking is we each give our 2 names, and then, we'll tally them up and say how many, and then we'll open it up for discussion. I'll give each board member an opportunity to discuss maybe why they chose their 2 names, and then we'll see.
Can we do that first? Like, can we give our names and why? Just because then we can start hearing the reasoning behind it in a system. Or how
Are
do
you good with
sorry.
that?
Sure, that works for me.
Is that all
You
right?
good with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point, we're gonna do that anyway.
Well, I mean, the intent was to just have everybody give their names
Okay,
first,
we
and
can
then
give the names,
have
that's fine.
discussion, so. What?
I think it makes more sense to do what Deb is suggesting, unless,
That's what I thought we were doing. Sorry.
just so that it makes more logical sense to me. That you would say, this is why I'm choosing these 2 names.
Okay.
But
I
we
figured,
don't have to do that.
oftentimes in school board meetings over the years, people, change their mind after discussion, instead of hearing someone's, reason now.
Okay, we
mean-
can do it that way. We can
just
do it.
do names.
Yeah, we
That's
can do it
fine.
that way.
I just that's what we said we were gonna do. I'd sort of like to
Okay,
stick to
sure.
what we said. Okay, so Deb, you want to give your two names in no particular order. What are your 2 names?
I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to do that. I was prepared to do discussion, so
Okay.
I'm sorry.
If y'all
I
are
guess I
more
just
prepared to
wanna
do
say-
discussion, we'll do.
No,
we can do-
it's okay. I'll move forward. I just first want to say I really appreciate the committee and the community's input on this. I know that the committee went out to the community to get names, and so I know that the committee narrowed those names down and really researched them, and were very enthusiastic when they submitted all 5 names to us. And so I'm happy to know that all 5 names reflect input of our community. So it's, with that, I would really like to explain my 2 names, but right
Do y'all
now,
wanna
I
do-
will do, it's okay, North Harbor and Maritime.
Okay. Chuck?
Sauvage, I'm gonna mess that all up trying to say it. The Native American name for Swiftwater,
Swabala fish,
You want the names?
or Swiftwater.
So those are your two names, Swiftwater and Schwabash, okay? So that we did get a name not on the top five, okay? Natalie?
I have Swiftwater and Maritime.
Swiftwater and Maritime. Lori?
Swiftwater and Maritime.
And I have North Harbor and Maritime. Connor?
Maritime and Swiftwater.
Okay, so I won't tally yours, but I said, so Connor said Maritime and Swiftwater as well. Hope you have any choice?
Yeah, Tyson wanted me to say Maritime and Swiftwater.
Okay, so Maritime and Swiftwater have it.
I don't, if it's not gonna be tallied, I don't need to.
What's that?
Do I need to comment?
Nope,
Okay.
nope. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we didn't have any nomination or any votes for Beacon or Shenandoah. We had 4 for Maritime, 3 for Swiftwater, 2 for North Harbor, and 1 for Schwabash. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there was here that was doing it in person. So, all right, so Deb, you started. We'll let you say why you picked Maritime and North Harbor.
So North Harbor, to me, is very consistent with most of our other elementary schools that we have in our district, and I think it's a nice way to welcome them into the family, show some unity, and really kind of gain that we are PSD, and so it kind of fits with that, and I appreciate that. For Maritime really hit the essence of coming together for me, and I think we all need a little bit more of that in our lives. You know, our community has always been tied to the water, our activities related to water. Historically, this area was accessed by water, which brought many different groups together over time, beginning with several Native American bands inhabiting downtown, Willachet, Fox Island, many different bands here. The Croatians and the Scandinavians also followed, coming to this land by water. The connection to the water is still very much present in Gig Harbor and continues to bring us together. Commercial fishing, recreational water activities, paddlers, sailors, Harbor Wild Watch, watercraft of all shapes and sizes. We're even home to the national champions of rowers, canoers, and kayakers. And so we remain connected to the water, and I think that shows our past, and I think it also shows our history. So that is a long way of saying the name Maritime would reflect a lot of who we are as a community, how we came to be, and what we will be in the future.
Okay. Thank you very much. How about Chuck?
When I was young, in the area down in Purdy, there was a native guy who, his name was Bobby Statiacum. And Bobby was mainly out on the Key Peninsula. He pretty much, his family had been Native Americans, and Bobby had continued to kind of follow that line and was out on the Key Peninsula for that long lineage. So I got to know Bobby, and I got to know that the area out there kind of from his perspective a little bit. And then I got to know a lot of the natives out there. One of our fire chiefs was Skahan. And Skahan was born to a native woman on the Mentor Sandspit. We are really deeply embedded in the native culture out there. We're surrounded by it, and it just seems right to honor that. And it's also a maritime thing, right? The swift water, it honors the waters that are around us. Out on the Key Peninsula, we have the fish hatcheries. We have a whole lot. We're constantly surrounded by the waters and reminded of where we've come from. And I'm involved a lot in planning being on the community council and having been on the land use advisory council. And one of the things I always remind people when we're doing planning is to look 200 years ahead. And we really have to look 200 years ago also to see the changes that have happened where we are now, to see where we're gonna go. And I would sure like to see this community continue to honor the nature and the raw resources that we have. And I think that commitment, working with the tribe, could really help to educate our youth. It would be a welcoming thing to our tribe to honor them and to welcome them into one of our schools. And I'm sure we would partner with them for further educational opportunities. It just seems like the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Natalie? You picked Swiftwater and Maritime.
I picked Swiftwater and Maritime, so I will echo a lot of what Deb said about Maritime. I think it really pays tribute to who we are and who we have been. We are tied to the water, and I may have mentioned this before. We are here because of a video that was put out called Tied to the Water, so that name to me is very, very special. But I would say, if we are saying our first choice, my top choice is Swiftwater, and my thoughts are kind of all over the place. It's really a culmination of who I am and how I grew up. I went to Choctawhatchee High School in Florida, and that tradition and the education that we had about the Native American tribes that were in Florida was just something that we all knew and we all grew up with, and I just assumed it was the same everywhere, and apparently is not. That was one piece. I also really appreciate the story of the Squaboch people gifting the building for a school to the early settlers here, and I just think it would be an amazing treasure to gift it back in a sense, and really honor that legacy. We have a lot of heritage here, and I'm really excited to be serving on another committee that is looking at forming some sister cities with cities in Norway and Croatia, and as we kind of dived into this project here, looking at maybe partnering with our native heritage as well. And so as we're going through that process, I've been talking to some longtime family members here in the harbor and asked them what their thoughts were. And they have been overwhelmingly supportive of this endeavor of Swiftwater. They have said, there are parks named after my family, there are roads named after my family. I don't see that for other families that still exist here. And from what I understand, we actually do have a family in our school district that is a direct descendant of the Squaboch people, and I just think it's not our history, it's still our present. So that is why I'm in support of Swiftwater.
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to also thank the committee and the work they all put in. Actually, there were things I loved about all 5 names, so that was a nice place to be, because there really was something I liked about all of them. I have thought long and hard about this. I have been doing tons of research and tons of studying this week on some of these names and talked to a lot of people in different places. I also would echo, you just said beautifully about Maritime. I think it's very all-encompassing. It does encompass so many things about the town and the history and all different things. And so that was one of my choices. And then, but I also have Swiftwater as my top choice. Because, and I appreciated the things that I learned and the folks who spoke tonight, because I think it's not always easy to do, to speak out about something you're really passionate about, something that's very personal, and I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, I realized I feel like if we have a chance to honor and recognize our district's rich tribal history and our original inhabitants, why wouldn't we take it? To me, it just seems like this is just an amazing opportunity to teach and celebrate our complete history in the town. And then, but even more important than that, I think, and this occurred to me, someone said something that made me think of this tonight. If through a name, we can communicate value to a group of our students, again, I feel like that's the right thing to do. It's just, if a student who maybe feels like their history has not been recognized, drives by the school and sees that if that makes the difference to that student and makes them feel valued, I just feel like that's the way to go. And lastly, I talked to, because this was significant to me, I talked to 2 different people this week from different districts. One was in this state and one was in another state, who have worked for school districts who had this situation where they partnered in a way with a nearby tribe, and they both had different tales of just really rich and meaningful relationships that developed between them and the tribe, and how it was just an awesome thing, and they both ended up feeling very honored by the relationship. So that's how I came to support those names. Thank you.
For me, I would echo with since Maritime and North Harbor were my 2. I mean, the Maritime, I would sort of, Chuck, you mentioned Swiftwater is like Maritime. I would say if that's the case, that's, can roll up under Maritime. I know, to me, the Swiftwater is more indicative of the Sound and the Narrows, but Maritime sort of is overarching, encompasses all the even the tribes, before, 100 years ago, still operated in maritime kind of operations. It's different than it is today, but they still operated in maritime operations. And then I picked North Harbor primarily because North Harbor is where the school is located. Regionally, it's North Harbor, and the naming policy for the school district is one of them is regional, to be regional. And Harbor North would have been more consistent with Harbor Heights and Harbor Ridge, and but North Harbor is actually where the school is going to be. It's just, to me, it makes a little bit of sense. One of the things I struggle with is 2 years ago, the board received some suggestion by a tribal liaison that naming that school anything other than a traditional Native American name and spelling would dishonor the tribes. And they suggested, they didn't demand, but they suggested that we not name that school anything other than the traditional name. And the board chose not to do that. This time, although we had some people saying that they would really like to see us named it Swiftwater, we had people saying they would like to go with the traditional name. We did also receive multiple emails from that same tribal liaison and videos urging the board to only select the traditional name. And I'm going to butcher it probably, but Schwabash. And they urged us to pick that name, not go with any other name. So to me, if that person is a tribal liaison, it said that we could dishonor or I guess a different word would be hurt or harm. To me, it's like if it could be possibly harm anyone. Just like, you can't sexually harass 2% of the people and it's okay. You can't make racist comments against 2% of the people and it's still okay. If 90% of the Puyallups are okay with Swiftwater and 10% would be dishonored and be hurt by the fact that we didn't go with the traditional name, I'm just torn with not naming it anything but the traditional name. And I think that my number one is Maritime, and based on that, my number one would be Maritime, and I already said why I picked North Harbor. So it's a little bit of a dilemma. I mean, we have 4 of the 5 board members picked Maritime, and 3 of the 5 picked Swiftwater, and so it's a little bit of a
Can we have
dilemma.
discussion?
So, sure.
Awesome. Can I ask a question of Principal Brooks? I started to put you on the spot. You were on the committee for the naming committee, correct? So I like Lori, did research on all 5 of the names and was thrilled to learn the history of the Native Americans. I had known some of it, but and the rest of the names. And I came here actually prepared with Swiftwater being high up on my choices as well. But something occurred to me during the comments from the public, and I want to get a sense from you if the committee was aware of this. So our job is to name a school, and if it's Swiftwater or Maritime or Avocado, whatever the name is, it's your job then to take and create that culture and identity. And I feel from the comments tonight that we're also assigning an identity for your school and a culture. We heard people want to be a part of the mascot and what the inside and outside and things that happen. What if they want a certain curriculum? What if they want, what if we need to go to school year round and that doesn't work for them? I get a little bit, so my question is, was the committee aware when they chose the Swiftwater name that it would have a potential culture, an identity that we're giving the school as well?
I'd say when we looked at all of our names, which there are so many, which were amazing names, I think our goal was to find something that was significant to our community, our students, and that we could build on any of those 5. And that was our goal, is to make your job hard because they all, as you've all mentioned, they all have that connection to the Salish Sea, our Puget Sound, the water. That's, you see that connection through. And I guess I'd say our committee looked at all 5 of those so that we could actually form a driving, that we could use it to help. And maybe I'll just share what our core team worked on for a vision statement that might help, which was we are a welcoming community of learners who inspire and empower each other to lead, innovate, and dream. And that's our core team. We haven't taken that to the community, but it's kind of a guidepost for us. And I guess if that helps in terms of our vision, that wasn't, the committee didn't use that as a dream in terms of the vision, but the committee did look at giving you some names that we would be excited about, all of them. So
okay.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does and it doesn't. Like, because when we said pioneer, they could be the pioneer pandas or porcupines or whatever. That they got to choose that. I feel like with the name Swiftwater, we're giving you that, but we also have a community that's going to come along and say, we'd like to see the mascot be this. So you have an outside influence into your school that will exist in our community as long as we have that name. And potentially the petitioning along with that, which as long as you're aware of that, and that's okay, I guess that's fine. I just would like us to be aware that we're not only giving this school a name, we're also kind of giving it an identity that comes with a lot of history, but people that might want to see it be something other than what David Brooks and his team have put together.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say also, when people say there's no school that honors the traditions of the people before the settlers, for lack of a better word, is, Kopachuk Middle School is named after the Puyallup Nisqually tribes. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but I researched Kopachuk, and it does have Puyallup and Nisqually roots. So I do know that the school district is, at least through Kopachuk Middle School, honoring that. My understanding is, Mr. Brooks, is that you'll be happy to have any of the names and that you're going to leave that to the board. So if we pick one, you're going to run with it, and there's, as far as you're concerned.
What I would say is that our team, the committee, myself, and Patrick will be excited about any of the names that you give us, and we will run with it. We are going to create community partners no matter which name we have across the board. So that's we're excited, and we're excited about all 5 of those. Like I said, I know we gave you hard choices, but we are really excited about it and the opportunities that this presents for our whole community.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, like I said, the first time through it was 4 of the 5 picked Maritime, 3 of the 5 picked Swiftwater. So we didn't know for Beacon, no for Shenandoah, and 2 for North Harbor. So I think that leaves us Maritime and Swiftwater. And so I would say, maybe we just go through it again and ask the board members what their preference is to go through. I mean,
Was there any other discussion from anyone else, thoughts after hearing everybody?
We start at Chuck's end?
No, what I was going to say is, I would say we have only 2 names this time.
I realize it, but before we go, I would want to hear what other people thought from
if anyone else
this
has any
discussion.
thoughts, sure, we can go through it all night long, huh, David?
If there's any other discussions.
Yes.
No, I don't want to vote unless
I'm
I
just
know,
messing
I
with-
know
I'm just messing with David.
everybody's thoughts on it.
You're not asked to pick a name yet, just if you have any other comments.
Right, well, you talked about the cultural aspect of it, and whatever we pick is gonna have a cultural aspect. I mean, Maritime, you're gonna have the fishermen, who wanna come up and, so there's always gonna be a cultural aspect to whatever name we pick. One of the things I'm looking at in this district is I like the idea of magnet schools. I like doing more than just a standard education. I like what we have right here. And to do that, and to really expand that, it seems like it's partnerships. And this is opening our arms to the tribe to be a partner. And they have so many resources that are available to us too, and opportunities that they would bring. And so I think it would be an opportunity wasted if we didn't open our arms.
One other thing, and you probably already know this too, which I was really excited about, is the park downtown, the Austin Estuary Park is now being renamed to the Tualaco name, which is really exciting to me, as well as the 15-foot sculpture that's going in that is honoring the tribe, and it's a fisherman. He's got a 5-foot fish, a salmon in it, and that's going to be down in that area as well, which I was really excited about because not only are we going to have, the potential of one school having that name, but now it's going to be down by the Harbor History Museum, and so all 10 of our elementary schools, once we get back to field trips, can go down there and really get a sense of that history, which I think is fantastic. I'm very glad to see that kind of that area of all 10 of our elementary schools being introduced to that. So that makes me very happy. But just a side note, I didn't know if you knew that was happening over here.
No, I read something about the early thoughts on that there too.
Yeah.
Also in Pocatuck is Chinook jargon, which is kind of, it's really not, it's kind of a bastardized term from my native friends.
Okay. Lori?
Let's see, I said most of what I wanted to say earlier, just that I had the exact same concern that Deb just raised this week about, I just didn't know what it would look like to have a relationship with the tribe, with the school district. I honestly had no idea, so I reached out to several people to see what I could find out. I thought it was significant that we have letters from even the president of the tribal chairman saying they would be very honored, to have the name on the school, and in fact to have the name, because I also made clear, if I didn't say this before, with one of the persons who we heard from, that the name up, just on the 5 we were given, the name was Swiftwater Elementary. It was not yes, Squabash. So I want to make sure that was okay, you know, I don't want it to be a watered down, like we translated it to what we liked better thing. And also was assured by more than one person in the tribe that would be, and someone said it tonight, a couple people on the calls, that they would be so honored to have Swiftwater. But to your specific point of, you know, then what? You know, like, you know, how much, you know, just what does it look like going forward if you name that? And both of the persons I talked to who were superintendents in districts that had a school with essentially a partnership, I'm not sure that's really the right word, but you know, this kind of a relationship with the tribe, both said that was not a problem at all. Like that any input they gave was just helpful and lovely, for lack of a better word. It was just a rich experience, and I was actually, I'll be honest, I was surprised. I didn't know, surprised just in the sense that it was much more. It wasn't just yes, it was fine. It was awesome. You know, it was people that were very appreciative of their relationship with the tribe, and almost made me feel like, well, I want to have I want to get to know the tribe and the leaders. You know, so that was just my research. It got me to that.
You mentioned that you spoke with someone, so Mr. LaFontaine. He was on the call tonight, and it was interesting because he sent us a letter and saying that we should not use any other name but Squabash because it would dishonor and there would be people upset.
Mm-hmm.
But yet tonight he said Swiftwater. So I don't know, like, how did that change for him? Because that was the same issue we had 2 years ago when we said to the district the Tualaquat name. Is there something you can come up with that is different easier to say but still represent? And the tribe said that no other name would represent it, and came back and it would have to be Tualaquat. And then so I'm a little bit anxious because of that. I'm not quite sure, like, I'm hearing Swiftwater's okay, but the educational liaison is maybe raising an issue that maybe it's not. So did you get clarification
Yes,
on that?
I actually spoke to him today because I had that same concern.
Okay.
Again, to the point, I really put a lot of effort in this. Like, if we're going to do it, it's going to turn out, you know, poorly, then that's not the way to go. So I spoke to Mr. LaFontaine to clarify that exact thing because he kept referring to Squabash, and he was simply just confused on the fact that I explained that that was not the name we were given. I mean, with the 5 names from the committee, Swiftwater was what, you know, on the list. So, and not the traditional pronunciation and he was very gracious and just said, oh, I just didn't know that. He said, I think Swiftwater would be great, and no one would. He did not have an issue with it, if that helps clarify.
So even those initial letters said that it would be
yes, because
offending,
he thought well, I don't want to speak for him, but my assessment of what he was saying was he just thought that was the name that was up for consideration. So he was saying, I support this name, and I said, you know, that just so you know, that's not, my point in calling him was so that we'd know if it was offensive. You know, I was like, just so you know, that isn't the name we're considering.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, I didn't know, but it would be great. It would be an honor.
Thank you for
getting
that
that's helpful.
because I didn't want to be in that situation.
Right.
So thank you.
I agree.
Natalie?
Just echo on that, we did receive a letter from the Puyallup Tribal Chairman who basically said the same thing, that this would be an honorific name, Swiftwater, and essentially a no strings attached. It would just be something that they would be proud for us to do. I did speak with one of the members who is a parent in our school district who said they would like to maybe partner on a committee with a mascot just to make sure that we are doing something that is not insensitive. And I think that's something to consider no matter what our name is, that our mascot is something appropriate. So I'm not concerned, as the concerns we brought up a couple weeks ago, that there would be a desire to have some input on our curriculum or how we spend our days in that building. I think it's a name that would be well received.
So you don't have a copy of his letter, do you?
Of Jason's?
Yeah.
don't.
Oh, Jason's or,
Jason LaFontaine's letter.
Richard? Oh,
So so Mr. LaFontaine is the same person, I believe, that advised the school district 2 years ago not to select or to only use the traditional name. And is that correct, John Howich?
Yeah, yes,
Thank-
although he'd spoken with others about that.
Okay.
I think that was a different situation.
Okay. Can you, I know that you are the one that sent the letter to the school board 2 years ago, saying that it would be inappropriate to dishonor the tribe if we did not name it anything but that traditional.
I think the
I may
difference
not
is
be,
there-
I mean, if I'm not speaking correctly, correct me, but
I think the difference is there wasn't a Swiftwater type equivalent to 12 Coop, and now that there is, my impression has been that the tribal leaders have backed the Swiftwater interpretation.
because I do know the letter that we received recently also said that he did say not to use Swiftwater would insult the tribe, but because he also said, if you all read it, was that in 4 or 5 years, Swiftwater is just going to be Swiftwater, and no one's going to know why Swiftwater was even chosen. So, and I guess I would want to say is, to echo some of the concerns that as far as, naming a mascot, or was there anything else they're going to, you said no strings attached, so what does that really mean, no strings attached? Does the school district have any concerns that they tried to attach strings afterwards, I guess? And
What is Jason's position?
What?
What is Jason's position?
Jason's position?
Liaison.
He's a tribal liaison?
He works for the Puget Sound ESD and is a tribal, Native American liaison with our district.
It's kind of like a co-op. He represents a region of our Puget Sound Educational Service District, working with Native students in multiple districts.
Okay, so he doesn't represent the tribe. And we heard from the chairman of the tribe, and we heard from a council member of the tribe, right, who both said Swiftwater.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if there's any more questions from anyone else. Not questions, comments? Go ahead.
I think it's worth.
Can you speak up?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm asking. Okay. I think it's worth noting that when you break a mold of something, it becomes normalized, and I think that's just interesting to note that even if it might not fit in with the mold, if you break a mold, it's going to start fitting in. I just thought that's interesting.
Good observation.
Yep.
I like it.
Can you talk up as well?
Yeah, sure. I've also contacted the tribe to make sure that it was all right before I made my decision. And the quote that I got was, "The tribe has been consulted from an early on this process and appreciates the efforts that the school district has done to include them. The view of this is a gift to Gig Harbor accurately recognize and reflect the first people here and those who still live in our community. This is not a slur, and it is in fact a way to elevate awareness." So that's what I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thanks for making it hard, David Brooks. I think every board member, I'd be stunned if every board member hadn't done the research on all the names. I know I did, and I think we all take this extremely seriously, and, because it's going to be there for a long, long time after all of us are gone. And so I appreciate all the board members and their comments, and the community members and your comments, and trust me, I know from my conversations with the board members, they are not taking this decision lightly. And so it is a difficult decision. So I would like to go ask each board member, what their name would be now. We had before 4 Maritime, 3 Swiftwater, and so I will just start. Deb went first last time. I'll just ask you this time, what is your name?
I guess we're not really tallying, are we? So somebody needs to make a motion on a name, right? I mean, regardless of this tally, then somebody needs to make a motion.
We're still gonna need a motion. We have to make a motion. And,
Yeah.
like, is anyone, like, your 2 were Maritime and North Harbor, mine were Maritime and North Harbor. I guess what has your are you still, I mean, have you changed your mind, I guess, is,
Well, I guess, yes, in the respect that a lot of my questions and concerns have been answered, and appreciate the discussion that we've had, so I've learned. So I would probably say Maritime and Swiftwater then.
okay. Chuck?
That's what you would
David, I would like to be the one to formally make a motion. That would be honored. To make a motion that we name the new elementary school Swiftwater. Can I do that?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
I mean, you had Swiftwater, Maritime, those, I mean, it's still your two, but you had already said Swiftwater was your first.
Still
Any
the same.
change in you?
Swiftwater.
Okay. And so I'm going to keep with Maritime and Swiftwater as well. So,
You're Maritime and Swiftwater now?
but that was, oh, I'm sorry, I was North Harbor before. I would say, for me, Maritime would still be my first choice, but I mean, there was some good compelling discussion about Swiftwater. So I guess at this time, we'd hear a motion from, for a name, and then we'll ask for a second.
I would be honored, my old friend Bobby Statiacum, to put forward the name Swiftwater for our new elementary school. There's a motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second. Nope.
So Tanya, motion made for Swiftwater. Chuck West made a motion to name the new elementary school Swiftwater.
Okay.
It was seconded by Natalie. Is that okay, Natalie? Let me,
I'm not Natalie.
no, I'm just kidding. Is it okay? I know that. You both said second at the
Yes,
same
that is
time.
fine. Natalie can
Okay.
have it.
So you tied, so
Yes, that's
seconded by Natalie. Okay. So is there any further discussion before we take a vote?
The only thing I would like to add is, like I said, I learned and listened, and I appreciate the discussion, and why there's some good things that could come out of naming Swiftwater. I guess, and I'm gonna use the word implore, I've had that word thrown at me a lot this last year, but I implore us, our board and our district, to not just name a school with this name. I go back to our curriculum. Let's get this history into our curriculum. Let's teach this to our kids, and not rely on a name that we think they're going to interpret and know what it means, just like Kopachuk or whatever. So, I mean, I think that's our bigger challenge, is that as a board, we need to look at the history that our kids are learning and what we want them to be learning, and be more intentional about that. So rather than, and I will use the word that Mr. LaFontaire said in his letter to us, slapping a name on a building, I hope it's more than that. So that's all I'd like to say.
I would say, irregardless if we were naming a new building, that we want to make sure that our curriculum is broad-based and covers the history. I'd also like to make sure that it's done in a way that doesn't make one particular people feel bad while you're teaching it. I mean, I think there's some stuff going around the country right now that's really concerning to me. And I think that we teach the history, and we teach it equally, you know, and we're thoughtful about how we teach our new curriculum. And so, and I think we heard some very great discussion tonight, and, you know, Dave's already said he would be thrilled with any of them, and I think either name would be great for the school district. So, Natalie, you have anything else to add?
Just thank you to everyone on the committee. We didn't mention Shenandoah. I love the story of the Scansey brothers boat. It was a really hard decision. And Beacon too. I wanted to know, what was the name that you said there was one person on your committee, it was new to the area, and they said one name really represented what it meant to move here.
Oh, Maritime.
Was it Maritime? They saw the video too. They saw it.
Okay.
Aye. Okay, so we have a motion made by Chuck, seconded by Natalie.
Make one more comment.
Go ahead.
So you talk about curriculum and stuff, and I would love to see that school focus on earth sciences and biology. not only bringing in the native culture, but that's a real important subject for the peninsula, is raising salmon, growing trees, with Harbor rural.
I think that's a bigger discussion.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a topic for another time.
That's a different, that's a
But I don't know
different.
that I want to.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because I don't think it
Okay.
needs to focus on Native Americans.
We're not voting on that
It would be
tonight.
great to have that included,
Yeah.
but it's a bigger picture than just that.
Okay.
That's all I wanted.
Any
I will
more?
say, I'm sorry, I will tell you that there is a curriculum we use developed by the tribal affiliations through OSBI called Since Time Immemorial,
Mhm.
and we already do teach that, and it is a native-based resource.
Do they learn about the Skabak?
I will check that out.
They need to.
They will now.
Now, I would
Well, not
just,
yet. We have to vote.
yeah, and I would just say,
No, they need to regardless, whatever we need.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
and I would just say that in the almost 8 years I've been on the school board, oftentimes board members hear compelling discussion, and a healthy school board doesn't always agree on every issue. A healthy debate is good, and sometimes we walk away with maybe what we didn't intend to come here with. We walk out with something different. Sometimes we want something and we vote our way and we lose, and sometimes we all change our mind for the good. And so we have a motion on the floor and a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all.
Say it.
You have a name.
If I just might address the board, I know that was a challenge in terms of picking from those five. And Swiftwater is one that our school, we can build on that. And I just want you to know that it's an opportunity for us. Our Gig Harbor, our North Harbor, that new area is a very diverse community. And I think in terms of being a welcoming community, it's something that we will take into consideration to welcome all of us. And I think this gives us definitely something to work with, and in terms of this adds more partnerships for us. And it's not just about school number 9 now having a name. This partnership that we develop will be across the whole district. It's for all of our elementaries and all of our schools. And listening to the students that called in tonight, I just appreciate that, and gives us a perspective for all of our students to make sure that they're valued and heard. And I just appreciate the board taking the time to give us a name. And I know that my core team and our committee and Patrick is doing a happy dance in that. So thank you very much.
Dr. Jarvis, any comments before we move on to the next section?
No,
Okay.
congratulations.
Okay. Thank you, board. Thank you,
Yes.
board. Thank you, board. I know y'all put a lot of work into that.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on tonight's consent agenda prior to the vote? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
It's been moved by Lori. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Natalie. It's been moved by Lori and seconded by Natalie. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Consent agenda has been approved. Next up is board discussion. Each board member, if y'all want to have any comments you want to say, we've already heard from the student rep, so Lori, you want to go first, Madam Vice President?
Sure. I wanted to, we talked a lot about schools, the kids coming back. There's been a lot of talk tonight about being back in the classroom and what that looks like, and that's super exciting. But it just reminded me that I want to give a shout out to our remote teachers, and Mr. Brooks has been kind of shepherding them as well. And and our students, but I had the opportunity to talk to one of our first grade remote teachers, and conversely, she has a very large class, as opposed, so I wanted to recognize that it's not everyone is enjoying a super small class, but they're thriving, like in spite of it all, that it's actually going much better than she thought it might, and it's impressive for me to see, not being an educator myself, just how creative our teachers can be and how they're finding ways to reach their kids, even when you're talking about a 6 or 7-year-old on a screen. So I just wanted to shout out to all the remote teachers and say that we appreciate you. I think sometimes in meetings we're so excited about getting in person, which is the goal, but I just want to mention that. And then as Dr. Jarvis mentioned, just being here in this building, the pioneer opening ribbon cutting that we had a chance to be at, for me, I just thought was significant because I've lived in this community a very long time, and all those many, many years when we could not pass a bond to improve, and my own children who would go to other schools, you've all heard me say this before, and just come home wailing because to play a sports event, and it was so much nicer, and the buildings were newer, and just being here for the ribbon cutting made me think back to all the efforts of Dr. Jarvis and SUP and all of the persons who just spent so much time and energy and ultimately just to the community to really show up and pass a bond and get us on our way to these amazing new schools. And this one I thought was really sweet because this building is truly for the whole community. It's very uncommon that you're at a school opening. Well, I've never been to one, but that you're at a school opening when it's like not just for one neighborhood, and this school really, truly anyone in the district can go here if they choose, so that was cool. And lastly, I just wanted to give another shout out to Mr. Brooks, who's not expecting this, but he was the principal of my own children, at least some of them, at Discovery, and so I've known him a long time, and I just remember seeing you at many, many events, trying to knock on doors and get the bond passed, and just from the start and watching you be named the planning principal and your investment with the school that is no longer ES9, but Swiftwater Elementary, and your core team, and just the respect that the community and your staff have for you, and the culture that you created both at Discovery and that you will take with you to Swiftwater is just going to be fun to watch, and I am excited for you. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just address the board that one of the names that we didn't put forward was Bond Elementary.
Bond Elementary.
Oh.
I like it. I like it.
So thank you all, and I also just have to say thank you to Stephanie Schrader, the Pioneer crew, for Patrick and Dr. Jarvis and the board for making this happen, because last year at this time we had 5th grade overflow from Discovery in this room right here. And just like Lisa mentioned, it is amazing to be back here and to know that for our community, our schools are going to feel a little bit more breathing room thanks to the bond passage and all of our 6 projects going on right now. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anna?
Well, I don't want to belabor fishbowl, but
I do.
The C team was really close. It was really close. Anyway, congratulations to Peninsula High School on that. I will keep it short because I know it's been a long night. I just wanted to share a funny story. I drive a carpool of a cohort of 7th grade boys who have been doing online now for a year together, and they cannot wait to go back to school. But the funniest part is that they were talking about their teachers and what they were like in person, and our teachers have, to no surprise, achieved a celebrity status. I mean, these kids cannot wait to see what they look like in person, to predict what the classrooms are going to look like. The teachers are being talked about, and they've created a place that has been safe and welcoming online, and the kids are really excited to continue that either online or in person. And I'm just grateful as a mother and as a member in this community, grateful to everyone who's worked so hard this year.
I do gotta mimic a thank you to everybody that's worked so hard. I mean, we get a lot of accolades up here, but it's really the district, the admin, who's done so much. There's a lot of work going on. I was at Vaughn Elementary. It was today, I guess it was this morning, in my other capacity as a firefighter. And just watching how they made it work with somebody that was suffering from a little illness. They just make it work, you know, and it's amazing the resources that happen. I just can't thank the staff, the teachers, everybody that's making it happen. I do want to just talk a little bit about what I see as the need to support everybody. We talk about the school being all-inclusive for the district, but we've got to remember that, like with Evergreen Elementary, not many of them signed up for here, and that was because it was such a long distance for them to travel. And so those kids are a long ways away from this location. Early on, I was the vice president of Boys and Girls Club here when it was open, and it quickly became aware that this was really a hard place to get to for people on the Key Peninsula. And so we realized early on from the Boys and Girls Club that they were really trying everything they could to get people here from the Key Peninsula, but it doesn't have easy highway access. It was really difficult. And so when we looked at the enrollment numbers when they came in, we didn't have a lot. The further out on the Key Peninsula you went, the less the enrollment percentages were appropriate. So I just want to make sure we continue to support the activities of Evergreen and Vaughn, the ones that have lower numbers for here, in those extra programs. I envision our district to do more, like what we're doing with maybe the partnership, if we could partner with the tribe. I would like to see us embrace other alternatives. The recent numbers we got in some of the reports showed that we lost a lot of kids at the high school level in this last year. Enrollment was way down in our senior and junior levels. I don't know if you guys noticed that when we looked at those numbers. We need to be creative in bringing those kids back in and embracing them and offering programs that will help them, whether it's GED programs or whatever it is. We have to really reach out as they come back in and offer things that would entice them. Like career trades programs, auto shop, wood shop, things that maybe those kids would be. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
One, I wanted to thank Tanya and the district. When we learned about OPMA having open meetings and that we could meet in person, the board jumped on it. And I think Art probably received 5 phone calls. How do we make it happen? Because we've all wanted to be in person, and so we weren't allowed to. And as soon as that gate opened, Tanya, thank you for getting this room ready. Thank you to the AV crew over there, IT, you call it IT? IT? Sorry, whatever. But I appreciate your efforts and work to make this happen, because it feels good to be back in person, except that I don't get to wear sweats anymore to my board meetings. And I appreciate the mention about the athletics. It's been fun. The district, and I don't know if our athletic directors arranged it or what, but we get to watch every game online. So there's a service that you can subscription that you can get, and those funds actually go to our ASBs. So all of our ASBs are losing monies this year because they can't fundraise. This is a great way to support their ASBs, and you get to watch soccer games and the volleyball games and the football games, and so that is really cool. You can, I don't know if it's on the district website or whatever, but people can find that out. Lastly, our applicant period for our superintendent search closed last Friday. We have a very large pool of applicants. We're very excited about that. The board will be narrowing some of that down on March 13th, and more details about that will come out in the coming months. So, excuse me, March 4th.
March 4th.
It's March 13th.
Like, what's going on?
March
What?
4th is sir. Yeah, March 4th. Thank you for that. Just lastly, I was at Harbor Ridge this morning, and it went beautifully. And I even asked Mike Benoit, I said, "Are you nervous?" He's like, "No, I am just flat out excited." And I think it's because they are so prepared, overly prepared. And it was fun. I went into the staff afterwards and was talking to some of them, and they were already debriefing on like any areas that we can make this safer or more enjoyable for kids or welcoming for kids. They were already on it, ready to move, make it better for the next day. So accolades to all of the schools that are doing this, and high school people are gone, but yeah, thank you.
So everyone's already said everything I was going to say. You know, it was fishbowl was not quite what I was expecting. I thought it might be a little bit more even, but that's okay. It was a great game for one team. And then the ribbon cutting yesterday, as everybody said, it's just it was a great community effort. Taxpayers, someone made a comment to me yesterday that said, "Too bad we couldn't put the taxpayers on the plaque because they're the responsible for passing the bond," and it's true, but there's like 60,000 of them, so it'd be sort of hard. But it was. I mean, it took the whole community to pass the bond, and took the whole community to come together and get the schools ready, and it's just been awesome coming off of a really, really challenging 2020, and just really hopeful 2021. So I'm already seeing it's going to be so much better, and being able to speak at the ribbon cutting yesterday was, just an honor to have, after having to go through failed bonds and knock on all those doors and to feel the agony of defeat, remember, and to finally get that win and just to see these 4 new schools coming together, it's just, so amazing to watch. So, Mr. Brooks, you have a school and or school name, and hopefully you'll sleep well tonight, and maybe the board will sleep well tonight too. And I again thank the board for their passionate discussion and research, and at the end of the day, we got a name. So with that, I call the meeting adjourned at 9:01.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Yep.
you.